Victors in the struggle for their right. We've won freedom's fight. All one, strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, fashioned with and blessed by God's good hand. Let us all our people join as one, brothers under the sun. All one, strong and free. One land and one nation is our cry. Dignity and peace needs Zambia's sky. Like a noble eagle in its flight, Zambia, praise to thee. Oh, one, strong and free. Praise be to God. Praise be, praise be. Bless our great nation, Zambia, Zambia. Free men we stand under the flag of our land, Zambia. Praise to thee, oh one, strong and free.
Prayer. Shall we pray? Father, we thank you this moment. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for each and every one of us. Father, we now pray committing this press conference unto your hands. Lord, we pray that you shall, O God, reign with your wisdom upon those who are going to speak in this conference. Father, it's not about individuals, but it's all about the nation. The nation which is called after your name. Now we pray even for the leadership and the counsel of the Holy Spirit, that Lord, you shall guide us all. We leave everything in your hands, believing that you've answered. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Take your seats. I'll call upon the spokesperson to address the media, to the media,
One bottle of water.
the public.
So you will introduce us, or?
Sorry, I omitted to acknowledge the people that are seated before you. I acknowledge the presence of the acting chairperson, President Dan Kule. We have in the midst the Vice President of the Patriotic Front, Honorable Given Rubinda. We have President Peter Chanda seated next to him. We also have Professor Nelson Ngoma with us, and the spokesperson, who is also the president of the Patriotic for Economic Progress, PEP. I call upon our spokesperson to address the media.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shakafuswa. I think the address will be made while seated, since we have a lot of issues to deal with. So if you want to bring your microphones in front, you can proceed to do that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity to recognize the people that are with me today. The acting chairperson of the Tonse Alliance, that is Professor Dan Pule. Chair, welcome. The acting president of the Patriotic Front, that is Honorable Given Lovinda. Honorable, welcome. The representative of the People's Pact, Professor Ngoma, President Chanda, as well as all other presidents that are here with us today, including yourselves as members of the media. I welcome you all. Today's press briefing is dealing with a number of issues. Specifically, we have 12 different issues to attend to. The first issue that we wanted to update you, the media, and through you, the nation, is with regard to the preparations by the Tonse Alliance for the upcoming Youth as well as Women's Day. As an alliance, we take the affairs of women very seriously. We believe that the women of this country are very big stakeholders in the overall activities of the nation, in the overall issues to do with the governance of the nation, and also in terms of the decision-making process, because women constitute a larger proportion of our voters than the men. And therefore, with regard to the upcoming Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March, which is this Saturday, the Tonse Alliance has put in place a number of activities across the whole country to ensure that we are able to fully participate in this event. We have coordinated our respective political parties to ensure that we have joint activities under the banner of the Tonse Alliance. And I'm sure you observe that in the course of the Women's Day celebrations on Saturday. We also want to take this opportunity as Tonse Alliance to give a message of hope to our women who we believe have been sidelined under the current administration, that when the Tonse Alliance forms government, we shall ensure that women are respected and that they are given a voice to air their concerns and ensure that their well-being is taken care of in a respectful manner. In that regard, we have the statement that the Vice President issued not so long ago, where she said that women should take advantage of the Imita Ufore policy of the UPND government. In other words, telling our women folk that for them to benefit from the resources of the nation, they need to get pregnant. That, countrymen and women, was very insulting. It was insulting on many fronts. It was insulting to those of our women folk that are not able to conceive. It was insulting to those of our women folk who have had the number of children which they had planned for, and therefore they are no longer interested in having more children, because having children is a personal choice. You cannot have a government policy which is premised on the women folk to have children or to get pregnant. That was very insulting, and as Tonse Alliance, we want to call upon the women community in this country to fully condemn that statement from the Honorable Vice President. In addition to that, we as Tonse Alliance would like to take this opportunity of the Women's Month, which is March, to appreciate the notable women that this country has been blessed with in the past. And in that regard, we have women such as Mama Chikamoneka, we have women such as the founding First Lady, Mama Beth Kaunda, and so on and so forth. We want to state that we appreciate your contributions to this country. That is our position with regard to the upcoming Women's Day. With regard to the youth, we as Tonse Alliance have noted that the youth of our country, despite them being in the majority, despite them being the biggest proportion of the population of this country, are continuously being marginalized. They are constantly being put on the side of the decision-making table. That, in our view, should not be tolerated going forward, because the only way that any administration can make decisions which fully take into consideration the plight of the youth is if the youth themselves, they participate in that decision-making process. Any other person who is not a youth cannot fully take into consideration the plight and needs of the youth. Therefore, as Tonse Alliance, when we form government next year, we shall ensure that the youth are at the decision-making table, that decisions related to the youth are not made without the youth themselves being involved. And that will remain our commitment throughout the administration, that we shall learn in terms of the affairs of this country starting next year. Additionally, we want to mention that the youth of this country needs to take the opportunity of this upcoming Youth Day to emulate the youth of 40, 50 years ago. You must remember that the youth of yesteryear includes leaders such as the late former President Kenneth Kaunda. Kenneth Kaunda was only 40 years old when he took over the governance of this country. 40 years old. That is a very young person. And his entire cabinet was made up of the youth. And when you look at the projects that Kenneth Kaunda implemented under his administration, we as a nation are still benefiting from them. Why was that the case? Because he was youthful when he became president. Therefore, whatever plans he had for the nation, he made plans factoring in 50 years, 60 years in front of him, knowing fully well he will still be alive at that time. Any other person whose focus is 10 years or less is unlikely to have far-reaching focus in terms of decision-making. And that is the reason why the youth should be in the forefront to ensure that they are at the center of national planning, at the center of national decision-making. Once we revert to the 1960s philosophy of having a youth-centered government, youth-centered administration, then we as a country will once more begin to plan strategically for the next 50 to 60 years. So that is my challenge to the youth. Your contribution to the politics of the country, to the governance of the country, should not be limited to just political violence, to intimidating the elderly, to insulting the elderly. Have a more focused contribution. Offer yourselves to the leadership of this country. That is our message as Tonse Alliance to the youth of this country as we commemorate the National Youth Day. Countrymen and women, this takes us to the second issue for our press briefing this morning, and that is the position of the Tonse Alliance in response to what government has reiterated regarding the joint opposition statement that we issued on Sunday, which was the 2nd of March 2022, regarding the 2022 population and housing census saga involving the Zambia Statistical Office. Countrymen and women, I'm sure you all remember the joint press briefing that we had with our colleagues in the opposition, our colleagues in the United Kwacha Alliance, our colleagues in the Socialist Party, our colleagues in the Zambia We Want political party, our colleagues in UNIP, and our other opposition colleagues, including those in the civil society that were represented by Honorable Brebna Changala. In that press briefing, the key issues that we raised was the ongoing scuffle relating to the statistics of this country, the population of this country, how that population is distributed in various provinces, the number of registered voters, how those registered voters are distributed to the various parts of the country, and so on and so forth, as revealed by the summary report for the 2022 population and housing census. Countrymen and women, it has been in the public domain that the chairperson of the Civil Service Commission, Dr. Cholwe Beani, publicly challenged and undermined the census report. And that was not a once-off activity at the Mulungushi Conference Center. He followed up with further attacks on the official report, which he has referred to as illegal and null and void. Further revelations were made regarding meetings that are alleged to have taken place at Community House, attended by the President, the officials from Zamstats, the chairperson himself of the Civil Service Commission, relating to this report, as well as various other discrepancies to do with areas, specifically 15 wards in the southern province of this country, where we are told the number of registered voters is greater than the population of those wards. Now, we all know that for someone to be a registered voter, they just don't need to be a human being, but a human being of a certain age. So if the number of registered voters is higher than the total population, including children and babies, then that is a huge discrepancy, which requires to be resolved, and the resolution of that discrepancy needs to be communicated to the Zambian people in a credible and sober manner, because these issues are at the center of the credibility of our electoral system. The Zambian people have generally been a very peaceful people, and the hope and wish is that they will continue to be a peaceful people. But these discrepancies, if not properly explained by the government, have the potential to instigate our people and to make our people to rise and challenge the credibility and results of the upcoming election. And when that happens, it will be difficult to condemn the people, because the people would be responding to the lack of credibility in those elections as outlined by the conflicting information in the statistics. So our hope and wish is that government can act promptly to address these discrepancies in a sober and credible way. We have seen the responses from government through the government spokesperson, Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa, and we have seen that he is adopting a casual approach to these issues. He is adopting a dismissive approach to these issues. According to Honorable Cornelius Mwitwa, it's a non-issue that there were those alleged conflicts in terms of the population exceeding, or rather the registered number of voters exceeding the population. He sees it as a non-issue, as an issue that the Zambian people should not be talking about. But we want to caution Honorable Cornelius Mwitwa, and through him, the government of President Hakainde Hichilema, that this issue of discrepancies in the statistical data of the nation is a very critical issue to the welfare of the nation, to the peace and stability of this country. And therefore, it needs to be addressed with the seriousness and with the soberness that it deserves. Countrymen and women, this takes us to the third issue of our press briefing, and that is the position of the Alliance on the proposal by President Hakainde Hichilema to undertake a delimitation of constituencies across the country before the 2026 general elections. Our position on this matter is that we as Tonse Alliance are not going to accept any amendment to the Constitution of Zambia before the 2026 general elections. Any amendment, whether it is an amendment to accommodate delimitation or an amendment of the so-called clauses which are not controversial, the bottom line is that we are not going to accept any amendment to the Constitution. We are going to fight any proposed amendment to the Constitution with all our will and energy. And the reason is simple. The reason is simple. We do not trust the UPND government. The UPND government has since realized that they've run out of favor of the Zambian people, and therefore they are looking for a back route, a backdoor route to get back to power. They are desperate. From the top to the bottom, they are desperate. We know for sure that come rain or more rain, they cannot win 2026 elections. Therefore, countrymen and women, therefore, we shall oppose the UPND administration with regard to the issue of amendments to the Constitution. Additionally, on the issue of the proposed delimitation exercise, additionally, the proposal by the UPND government is that we amend the so-called uncontroversial clauses, and then at a later time, we amend other clauses. However, every time you undertake a constitutional amendment process, it is a costly exercise. It is an exercise that costs money. Amend the Constitution on the so-called uncontroversial clauses and later on amend on other clauses is not economically sustainable. That is the other point. The bottom line is that we shall not allow any amendment to the Constitution, full stop. Countrymen and women, allow me to go to the next issue of our press briefing, and that is the fourth issue. in relation to our position as the Tonse Alliance on the eligibility of the Electoral Commission of Zambia to undertake the next year general elections. Their eligibility. Because you must understand, countrymen and women, that issues of elections, especially general elections, are issues that most Zambians hold very dear. And therefore, they need to be handled carefully by the government as well as ourselves as opposition. And our position as Tonse Alliance regarding the integrity and the eligibility of the Electoral Commission of Zambia to conduct next year's elections is that ECZ is not eligible. The Electoral Commission of Zambia is not eligible for the simple reason that any electoral body anywhere in the world, for it to have the credibility to conduct a national election, should have the semblance of independence. The Electoral Commission of Zambia is not independent, and it does not behave in an independent manner, and it is very blatant about its activities based on their conduct in the by-elections that we have noticed so far. You have a situation whereby before a by-election, the ECZ chairperson goes to the area of the by-election, the way Kawamba was, the way Pambashe was, the way Petauke was, and they undertake what they call youth sensitization, where they bring some youth together and do workshops. And when you look at the message in those workshops, they essentially amount to campaigning for the ruling party. That is it, the commissioners of the Electoral Commission of Zambia. They go to a church, and we have video evidence to this effect. They went to St. Mary's Catholic Church in Kawambwa and told the parishioners that they should vote for someone who will work with government to bring development to the area. That is an ECZ commissioner telling parishioners. And you have the opposition and the ruling party MP. So indirectly, who are you telling the parishioners to vote for? You are telling them to vote for a ruling party candidate. And that is not the job of the Electoral Commission of Zambia. That is not the job of the Electoral Commission of Zambia. You have individuals who are sitting on the commission, individuals like Commissioner McDonald Chipenzi, who applied to stand on the UPND ticket in Chirundu constituency and was declined, and now they are sitting on the Electoral Commission of Zambia, Board of Commissioners. The question which you, the media, and through you, the Zambian people, should be asking ECZ and the Commissioner Chipenzi specifically is, at what time or at what point did he stop being a UPND supporter and become independent? At what point? He needs to tell us and tell the Zambian people to say, I was a UPND supporter, that's why I applied to stand on the UPND ticket in Chirundu constituency, but on this day, I stopped being a UPND supporter and I became an independent person, and therefore I now qualify to sit on the commission of the Electoral Commission of Zambia. He needs to give us that explanation. In the absence of that explanation, for all intents and purposes, he is still a supporter of the ruling UPND party. He is still a cadre of the ruling UPND party, and we cannot have an electoral commission made up of supporters and cadres of the ruling party. Countrymen and women, allow me to move on to the next issue of our press briefing, which is the fifth issue. And that fifth issue is the Tonse Alliance position on the threats issued by government against the auxiliary bishop of Chipata, the Right Reverend Gabriel Msipupiri. Countrymen and women, this country, and this government in particular, just when we thought they had sunk very low, they always take us to a new low. They always manage to do that. They always manage to do that. How can an entire government threaten a bishop and say, we are going to isolate you from the church and we are going to deal with you? First of all, for clarity, my question to Cornelius Mwetwa and to the Hakainde administration is, can you clarify on how you intend to deal with Auxiliary Bishop of Chipata, the Right Reverend Gabriel Msipupiri? How do you intend to deal with him? Do you intend to kill him? Do you intend to assault him? Tell us how you intend to deal with him. Do you intend to abduct him? You need to provide clarity. Give us clarity. Give us clarity. We want clarity. How you intend to isolate the bishop and deal with the bishop? Do you intend to send thugs to go and attack him in his house? How do you intend to deal with him? Give us clarity so that we know how you intend to isolate and deal with the bishop. Countrymen and women, the level of intolerance by the current administration has reached levels that we all never thought possible. They cannot accept anyone who challenges them. When you look at the sermon of a bishop, did he insult anybody? He didn't insult anybody. Did the bishop use bad language against the leadership of this country? The bishop merely reminded the government to say, when you promise us, you need to deliver on the promises. And he gave very specific examples. By the way, he was giving that sermon in Lumezi. Lumezi is off Chama Road, as in the eastern province of Zambia. And the bishop referred to a road, which is a gravel road, which the UPND government had promised the people of Lumezi that they are going to tar. And they have not tarred. So he was merely reminding them to say, you promised the people, but is there anything wrong with that? To warrant threats from the entire government, not just a political party. We are used to the UPND saying senseless things. And they can say all the senseless things they want to say because they are a political party. They are a voluntary membership political party. But we cannot accept the government of the Republic of Zambia to say senseless things. So if Cornelius Mwetwa wanted to threaten the life of a bishop, he should have done that on a UPND platform and not a government platform. Countrymen and women, we have seen an increase in attacks against members of religious bodies, specifically attacks from government to the Catholic Church, as well as attacks from the government to Pentecostal churches. And we are wondering, why is the UPND government finding it very difficult? Why are they finding it very difficult to have sober and proper relations with the Catholic Church and with Pentecostal churches? Why is it that they cannot resist the urge to insult, demean, and threaten members of the Catholic Church as well as members of Pentecostal churches? Why? Why? We want to know. That is a challenge we are posing to the government through their spokesperson, Cornelius Mwitwa. They need to tell us and tell the Zambian people why they are failing to have proper relations with the Catholic Church and with Pentecostal churches. We saw not too long ago a Pentecostal pastor, Duncan Simuchimba, being prosecuted, first of all harassed, then arrested, then prosecuted, and then convicted on very flimsy grounds. Because he appealed to his members, his fellow colleagues at Sokone Market to resist their removal from the market. Everyone has that right. We are all Zambians. We can challenge any policy of government. No one warrants to go to prison because they challenged a government policy on any issue, whether it is the issue of evicting marketeers from Sokone Market or any other issue. We are citizens of this country. We are bona fide citizens of this country. We have a right to challenge government policy, whatever form or shape that government policy takes. We have a right to challenge it. And that is all that Pastor Duncan Simuchimba did. And consequently, he was harassed, arrested, prosecuted, and convicted because of challenging government policy to relocate marketeers from Sokone Market. That is grossly unfair. We have cases of senior members of the ruling party, the Secretary General of the ruling party, calling the Archbishop of Lusaka, His Grace Dr. Alec Banda, as the Lucifer of Zambia, as the Satan of Zambia. Some of us took that issue personally. We took Batuke Imenda to court, to the Magistrates Court. We filed a criminal complaint against him, wanted to prosecute him. He appeared in the dock, but the GPP refused to grant consent to do a private prosecution. And that is how he was excused on the offense of hate speech. We have incidents of Father Mukosa being summoned by the police because he gave a homily. When did the Catholic Church start giving homilies which challenge government? From the times of KK. The Catholic Church has always stood up with the people and gave homilies, very strong homilies. But have we ever seen or heard any bishop or any priest being summoned to the police because of a homily that they gave on the pulpit? Never. So that is the level of desperation that we are now seeing under the UPND administration. They are very desperate. They know they are on the way out. They want to intimidate everybody. They want everyone to stop talking so that people are not made aware of their failures, their incompetence, their corruption, their theft. They don't want people to expose them. So they want to gag everybody. That is why they are always throwing charges of seditious practices. Every person who challenges them, they quickly give him a charge of seditious practice. Every person who challenges them, they give them a charge of seditious practice. But we shall not stop talking. We shall not stop talking. We shall not stop talking. And the reason is simple. Because we are bona fide citizens of this republic. Zambia is our country in as much as it is their country. And for that reason, we shall continue to expose them, the hypocrites that they are. Countrymen and women, allow me to go to the next item of our press briefing, which is related to the previous item. And that is the threat by government to gag the private media. We've seen direct attacks by government through Cornelius Mwitwa, directed at the Mass newspaper. We've seen direct threats by Cornelius Mwitwa on behalf of government, directed at KBN television. We've seen direct threats directed at various other private media houses. And our position on this matter is in form of advice to the UPND government that in a democracy such as ours, you need to have a stomach for divergent views. If President Hakainde Hichilema, every time he hears someone castigating him about his failures, he loses appetite. He refuses to eat nshima. Next time he hears another person is talking about the failures of his government, again he loses appetite. He refuses to eat. He's going to lose weight. He's going to lose weight. Because we shall continue talking about the failures of the current government. That is what makes Zambia a democracy. We are a democracy. So he needs to have a stomach. He needs to have a stomach for people challenging his government, for people challenging him. And he needs to be tolerant. Otherwise, he will not afford to continue threatening and undermining everybody. On the issue of threatening the private media, we have also seen a statement by the government spokesperson that they intend to reintroduce the revised cyber laws, which carry a stiffer sentence against anyone who is accused of committing a cyber crime on the internet. Again, this policy is founded on hypocrisy, because when you talk about the cyber laws and their application, you realize that any blogger who challenges government is quickly arrested. And yet the biggest bloggers who blog on behalf of government, that is Causeway, Zambia Watchdog, Zambia Bulletin, and those other gorilla pages on Facebook, are free to insult any one of us. Some of us, we've been insulted day in, day out. They even go beyond you as an individual and even bring in your wife and children to insult them too. And yet, we don't see any action from ZICTA. We don't see any action from Zambia Police. The question is why? Are those not abrogating? Are they not abrogating the cyber laws? Just because they are speaking on behalf of the ruling party? Are we always going to have those double standards where laws apply to those who oppose government but not those who support government? Is that the Zambia we are going to live in? No. Those are the questions which you, the Zambian people, should ask yourselves and challenge the current government on. Current countrymen and women, allow me to go to the next item on our agenda, and that is the Tonse Alliance position on the justification by government regarding the walkout from parliament of the ruling party MPs to avoid debating the cost of living motion. First of all, I want to mention that the issue of the cost of living, the issue of poverty, the issue of the socio-economic welfare of the citizens is at the cornerstone of any government. The reason the masses vote for a particular party to form government is so that they can improve their what? Their cost of living, isn't it? They can improve their welfare. So that maybe in the previous administration, nsima na kapenta, maybe in the new administration, wangateko nsima na sausage. Simamen. Now, when you have representatives of the people in the form of MPs running away from debating a motion to do with the cost of living of the people, the cost of living which people are complaining about the cost of living, which has so far doubled from about 4,800 kwacha for a family of six living in Lusaka in August of 2021, according to the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection Basic Needs Basket, to the current one, which is currently standing at about 11,800 kwacha for the month of February 2025. That's more than double in the cost of living. And an opposition MP puts up a motion to debate the cost of living so that government can propose and inform the Zambian people on how they intend to address the cost of living, to reduce the cost of living. And ruling party MPs ran out of parliament to avoid talking about the cost of living. Countrymen and women, that is an insult to the people of Zambia. There can be no greater insult by elected representatives to the people of Zambia. But not only that, one of the reasons why the ruling party MPs might have run away from parliament is because they've since realized that their president does not have solutions to the cost of living. They might have realized that, and therefore they are unable to continue defending their president. But what they were short of saying is to tell the speaker that we ask the president to come and debate this motion himself. Countrymen and women, allow me to move to the next issue in our press briefing, and that is the Tonse Alliance position on the presidential address to Parliament on national values and principles. Countrymen and women, when President Hakainde Hichilema drove all the way from Community House, passed through State House to Parliament, and made his 3-hour address to Parliament, our expectation was that he was going to say something substantive. Unfortunately, we realized after following him for 3 hours and draining our phone batteries and finishing our data bundles that the president did not say anything substantial. And therefore, our response to the president's address to Parliament is that we have no response. Because there was nothing substantial that President Hakainde Hichilema said to Parliament. Countrymen and women, allow me to move on to the 9th item on our agenda today, and that is the Tonse Alliance position on the failure by President Hakainde Hichilema to attend the funeral of the late founding president of Namibia, His Excellency Samuel Nujoma. Countrymen and women, since time immemorial, our forefathers, those who have run the affairs of this country before us, and specifically people like President Kenneth Kaunda, realized that Zambia is at the center of Southern Africa. We have 8 neighbors, and we needed to ensure that we maintain very good relations with all our neighbors because we needed each one of them. And in that regard, President Kaunda went on to support the liberation struggles of most of our neighbors, including Zimbabwe, Namibia, and so on and so forth, at great expense. That is the amount of sacrifice that our founding president made for purposes of regional unity. And it is for that reason that the Zambian Commission in Namibia was designated the number plate CD1. That is a privilege, a rare privilege for a small African country like Zambia to be accorded out of all the 253 countries in the world, including superpowers like the US, Russia, and China. It's a rare privilege. So, our expectation was that President Hakainde Hichilema would be cognizant of the importance of ensuring that we maintain good relations. Good relations. He does not need to create good relations. He just needs to sustain the good relations that we have been enjoying with our neighbors. And evidently, President Hakainde Hichilema seems to be failing to sustain the good relations that we, as a nation of Zambia, have been having with our neighbors, including Namibia. When you look at the list of leaders in the region who attended that funeral ceremony, you'll find that every other president attended other than President Hakainde Hichilema. The question, countrymen and women, the question is why? Why is our president shunning international events? Because this abscondment from the funeral was not the first time that President Hakainde Hichilema shunned a regional international event. Yeah. We have all seen that he has been avoiding attending SADC meetings. He has been avoiding attending other regional meetings. The question is why? Is it that President Hakainde Hichilema has realized that he is a laughingstock of the region? Is that the reason he is avoiding to attend these regional meetings? For fear of his colleagues whispering and laughing at him, laughing at his poor decisions in the management of this country. Is that the reason he is now shunning these international meetings? The president should tell us, the president should tell the Zambian people that he has realized that his colleagues in the region are laughing at him and that he doesn't want to undergo such embarrassment. Countrymen and women, allow me to move to the next item on our agenda, and that is the issue of continuous congestion at our border crossings, at our border posts. When you go to each one of our border posts, whether you go to Chilundu or you go to Livingstone, there's a Victoria Falls crossing, or you go to Kazungula, or you go to Mwami in Chipata, or you go to Mokambo in Mfulira, or you go to Sakanya in Dola, or you go to Kasumbalesa in Chiraombwe, each one of our border posts is congested. But when you step out of the country and go to the border between Tanzania and Kenya, which has a road with 8 lanes, it's a very busy border, but there's no congestion. Go down south and go to Martin's Drift, or go to Bait Bridge, or go to any of the southern borders. There is no congestion. So the question is, why is it that Zambia's borders are the only congested borders in the region? Apart from the fact that it is a reflection of the level of incompetence of the current administration. What are the other possible reasons? Not so long ago, we heard of a directive that was given by the Congolese authorities regarding Mokambo border, where they gave a threshold of the number of trucks that could be cleared per day. I can't remember the exact number, whether it was 80 per day or something to that effect. And when they reached that number, they stopped clearing any more trucks, even if that number has been reached at 14 hours or 15 hours. So the question is, why are our neighbors taking this kind of stance towards us as a nation? Why? And the possible answer to that question, countrymen and women, is because of the failure by our president to sustain the good relations which previous presidents have created for this country with our neighbors. He did not have to create good relations with our neighbors because those good relations were already there. The only thing that President Hakainde Hichilema needed to do was to sustain those good relations with our neighbors. And he has clearly failed to do that. And that is the reason why our neighboring countries are now implementing policies which have the overall effect of undermining our economy as a nation. Because we are an import-dependent country, and for as long as there is congestion at the border, it means that our economy is not moving. As simple as all that. So, our advice to President Hakainde Hichilema and his government is that he needs to reset the relations that Zambia has with our neighbors. He needs to begin to participate and engage with our colleagues in the region and ensure that he is present when other leaders in the region are meeting. That is our advice to President Hakainde Hichilema. Allow me to move to the second last item on our agenda this afternoon, and that is the Tonse Alliance position on government's failure to reduce load shedding despite the current ample rainfall. Their failure, I don't know whether to call it their failure or their refusal. I think their refusal is more appropriate. Their refusal to reduce load shedding. Because, countrymen and women, there is no dispute. There is no dispute that we are generating enough power and that some of this power is being exported. I think there is no dispute there. Government has acknowledged that they are exporting some of our power, even as we are going through prolonged hours of load shedding. They have tried to justify that using this or that, but there is no controversy there. They have admitted that they are exporting our power. So the question then that arises is, whatever little money that the UPND government is getting from those exports, can it equate to the damage to our economy due to load shedding? It cannot. Can it equate to the loss of jobs by most of our people who have had their employers shut down operations because of load shedding? Of course it can't. It can't. So then the question that arises is, where does the UPND administration get the motivation to continue exporting our electricity even as we undergo prolonged hours of load shedding, even as our economy continues to be damaged? Where do they draw the motivation? Additionally, countrymen and women, you will note that there is a lot of discrepancies between government and other sources of information relating to the water levels in Kariba. When you look at the publication from ZESCO, which came out about 2 weeks ago, ZESCO is trying to give the impression that the water level at the moment in Kariba is lower than the water level was at the same point in time last year. That is the chart that they published. That is impossible. And it is contradicted by the information that was released by the Zambezi River Authority, which is a joint company that manages Kariba Dam, a joint company between Zambia and Zimbabwe, and which is headed by a CEO who is Zimbabwean. They released information to say that we have 42 billion liters of water usable this year compared to about 20 billion liters of water last year. And therefore, they were increasing our allocation to Zambia so that we can generate more electricity. So you can see the conflict. If the narrative which ZESCO was running, that the water level in Kariba is lower at the moment than the same point in time last year, would the Zambezi River Authority have said we have more water available to be used? They would not have said that. So you can see a deliberate effort by government and government institutions to create a narrative that we do not have enough water, despite the abundant rainfall, that we do not have enough water, and that therefore we need to continue enduring load shedding.
Shame.
That we need to continue enduring load shedding. Meanwhile, in the background, they are exporting our electricity.
Shame.
If you asked me as an individual, what I think is the motivation of the UPND government to continue exporting electricity at the expense of the Zambian economy and the Zambian people, I'll tell you that I believe it is corruption. And the reason is simple. The reason is simple. When you export copper out of Zambia, we can count the number of trucks that have crossed Kazungula Bridge, isn't it? And we can say each truck is carrying 32 tons times 1,000 trucks. Therefore, there is 32,000 tons of copper that has crossed, isn't it? When you export electricity, can you see it?
No. It just gives you numbers.
You can't see it, isn't it? You rely on the word of UPND government officials, isn't it? Can you trust UPND government officials? You cannot. So it is my strong belief that the reason why the UPND government insists on exporting electricity at the expense of the Zambian people, at the expense of the Zambian economy, is because they are stealing when they export electricity. That is my strong conviction. That's my personal conviction. That's not a position of Tonse, but a position of Sean Tembo, the spokesperson of Tonse. Countrymen and women, allow me to move to the last item on our agenda today, and that is the extent of our preparations for the upcoming local government by-elections in Mtirizi Ward of Nyimba District of Eastern Province, as well as Kala Ward of Kawambwa District of Luapula Province. But since we are talking about elections, before I proceed any further, I'll ask all of us to clap for Tonse for winning Petauke again. Countrymen and women, we as Tonse will not forget about the fact that we won Petauke against all odds. But in addition to that, we want to assure you that it is our intention to ensure that we win each and every by-election that is called between now and 2026. Therefore, I want to assure you, the media, and through you, the nation, that we have made adequate preparations for the two local government by-elections that are coming up early next month, and that we have identified potential candidates. We are screening them with the objective of ensuring that we adopt candidates who are strong on the ground, candidates that can deliver on behalf of the alliance, and that they will be able to do for us next month, after the ballots are counted. They will be able to do for Tonse what Mr. Simon Banda, now Honorable Simon Banda, did for us in Petauke. On that note, allow me to conclude this press briefing. We shall take questions now. Thank you.
Colleagues from the media, you agree with me that it's risky business when you give the microphone to a spokesperson because it speaks from the heart. It's now that opportunity for you to ask questions which are not restricted to what has been addressed here, but also to bring out any pertinent issues affecting the nation. So those that have got questions, please raise your hands. We'll pick first set of three. Please tell us your name, the organization you represent, and ask your question.
Good afternoon, panelists. I'm identified as Takadebe, and I'm coming from Kumwesu. We've been gifted with different videos on social media which are related to elections. And the most recent one is the one that was published about yesterday or the other day, where we saw the violence that was happening in 2021, where polling agents were physically removed from their positions in the face of the police when they were watching 19 that day. I want to say I'm sorry. This was happening then, and some of these violence activities, we have seen them also happening in some by-elections. What message of hope are you giving the Zambian people? Because to some of us, we might pass a mandate to participate in elections when we tend to see that. And then also your agents, maybe some of them may be engraved with fear. What mechanism has Tonse or you guys have put in place to see to it that you are able to encounter these from happening again? They were in opposition, now they are in power. How prepared are you to encounter this?
Let's have two more questions.
I think we'll take one of these.
Just one year. Interact. No, no.
Honorable Rubindo, 100.
So we handle one question at a time. We interact that way. So Honorable Luvinda is speaking that question. Answering that.
You can move this.
Members of the press, it indeed must be a source of great concern that a political party that managed to cause havoc as an opposition political party is now a ruling party. And the question that you're asking, if it was to be paraphrased, is if you couldn't contain them when they were opposition and they managed to harass polling agents of the ruling party, what will happen in 2026 now that they are the ruling party? That must be a source of great concern. But all of you members of the press will recall that even in the recently held by-elections, the ugly head of the violence of the UPND was seen. It was not only our polling agents who were being harassed. It was actually some of the leaders of the Tonse Alliance. President Sean Tembo was not a polling agent. President Peter Chanda was not a polling agent. But you saw how Biggie Mwinde went round Kawambwa chasing them like common criminals. You saw how President Sean Tembo, spokesperson of Tonse, was knifed at a police station. Indeed, this must be a source of concern for all Zambians. Are we going to have free and fair elections under a government that in opposition perpetuated political violence? a political party that even managed to get ballot boxes outside polling stations and stuffed ballot boxes. My dear friend, for us in Tonse, our confidence lies in the spirit of Zambians. We saw this happen in Petauke. Make no mistake, the youths of Zambia are awakening to the fact that they will have to defend their democracy. We have said before, and I want to reiterate, that I'm borrowing the words of Hakainde Hichilema. Meet their violence. Defend your vote. Our brothers and our youths in Pambashe and in Kawambwa were not as prepared as our youths in Petauke. But they also saw that because the youths of Petauke stood up and they told Mwangala Zalomis, why are you not announcing our results? We have won. Announce them. And they went and stood at polling stations and made sure not a single of our polling agents was intimidated. At midnight, the Winakale announced, this is bound to happen in all future elections. For the sake of members of Tonse who may not have followed what happened in Petauke, I want to assure you it was not an accident. It was not by chance on the ground. And now we know, and we're getting better at organizing that. So watch the space. And this is timely advice to you, PND. Try the hanky-panky you have been using. We shall meet you. And we're doing this because this is our constitutional, not right, our constitutional duty. Zambia is a constitutional multi-party democracy. And anyone who stands by and sees that that principle is being breached is complicit. And it is an offense not to defend the Constitution. So Grafio Musamba, be ready. Bring as many of your rigging people as you can. All we have are the Zambian people. And the Zambian people will defend their democracy and they will defend their votes. What we did in Petauke, we shall replicate everywhere else where we have elections. And by the time we get to 2026, I can assure you that we'll have mastered the science of defeating their rigging machinery. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Acting President of the Patriotic Front. I saw a case.
Good morning, panelists. Good morning. Yeah, good afternoon, sorry. My name is Michel Nirongo. I'm from Zetos TV as well as the Monitor Digest. I've got two questions. The first one goes to President Sean Tembo. In your presentation, you made an allegation that Electoral Commission of Zambia is not independent. In an event that the UPND wins the 2026 elections, I'm going to accept in reference to your allegation. And what I'm going to do about the alleged legality. The second question directed to the acting president, Juvenile. We saw the president of the United States of America listing Zambia as one of the countries which it intends not to give aid on assumptions that there's too much corruption. The question that I have for you is that as leaders, what lessons can Zambia draw from this? Are we going to continue depending on the imperialists to fund us for our development? The question is, can Zambia develop without getting aid from the imperialists? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nirongo, for that question. So you're basically asking us to say, if UPND won 2026, would we accept it with the current SZ? The answer to that question is that UPND cannot win 2026. The only difference between us changing the Electoral Commission of Zambia, which is there, putting more credible people, and the UPND government refusing to reform ECZ and maintaining the same people who are there, is the margin with which we shall win 2026. Yes. If ECZ is not reformed, of course, our margin of winning 2026 might be lower than if ECZ was reformed and there were independent people manning ECZ. But whatever the case, we are winning 2026.
Okay.
The other part of the question?
Yes. Right.
My dear fellow citizens, make no mistake. When the USA came up with the Marshall Plan after 1948, it was because they were supporting their cousins, the Europeans. After that, when they came up with the concept of aid, it was towards Africa. But no single country on the face of the earth has ever been developed by foreigners. None. And Zambia is not about to be the only exception. Zambia shall be developed by Zambians. And the first thing that you must do as Zambians is to make sure you elect a government that is inward-looking. If you elect a government of people who, when they come to meet Zambians, they look down upon them and sit down when they are amongst foreigners, then you know that you have it wrong. You have it totally wrong. Trump has come and he has said, America first. He has a duty for the American citizens. He doesn't owe it to Zambia. No. The ones who owe Zambia development are us Zambians. This is the reason why we in Tonse have insisted that these mineral resources that God gave to us must be exploited for the benefit of Zambians. You were depending on Biden giving you money for programs to come and make Zambians vegetarians. And Trump has come to you and told you, why are you getting our $250,000 to turn Zambians into vegetarians? Why? And you have said, no, stop this. Biden has also told you, why are you giving $19 million to Mozambique for male circumcision? Is that going to develop Mozambique? No. We in Tonse are saying, please stop this diabolical arrangement of talking about increasing your production of copper to 3 million metric tons a year, and yet you are giving tax holidays to the people who are mining our copper. Tax them adequately so that you can improve our economy, so that we can develop our country. With or without American aid, we owe it to ourselves.
Correct.
When the Patriotic Front said we want Zambia, we want Zambian citizens, we want the government to have a stake, to have shares in these mines, it was because we knew that no foreigner owes us a living.
Yeah.
Those foreigners come to Zambia to come and exploit our mineral resources and externalize our money. This is the reason why the kwacha today is worth nothing. And this is the reason why they are trying to hide behind the new currency. In a country where everybody is realizing that carrying cash is no longer convenient, people are being used to e-transactions. They're using Airtel money to pay. Then you have a president who even celebrates that now we're bringing in 500 kwacha denomination. Zambia will not develop because of aid. Zambia will develop if your government ensures that you and me produce and the revenue from that produce remains in Zambia. The problem that we are suffering from now is that we are being governed by a group of people who have lots of deals. In every transaction, they are thinking, what is in it for us? Let us do away with the 15% duty on emeralds. Because if we put the 15% duty, the miners are complaining that emeralds won't sell. You don't go to continue producing cabbage when the price of cabbage is nothing. You leave your garden bare so that it remains fertile, so that when the price of carrot increases, you produce carrot. If the price of emerald on the international market is low now, what do? The reasonable thing to do is stop mining it until such a time that the price is high. Now, Trump has come to tell Hakainde that I will not continue to give you money that you are using for nothing to go and turn people into vegetarians. No. Use your resources to develop your lot. So I agree with Trump. Stop all this aid which is not making sense. Stop the aid of telling us, imita ufole. No. We don't want that kind of aid. All this international relationship is purely politics. It's nothing to do with developing Africa. Africans must develop themselves. The Europeans have exploited this continent for over 50, 60, 100 years. Time has come for you Zambians to rise and say, this endowment is for Zambians, and let Zambians be the beneficiaries of God's endowment on our continent and in Zambia. And the Tonse Alliance is ready to come and make sure that all these resources are exploited for the benefit of current and future generations. Thank you very much.
So I want to add to what Vice President, the acting President of PF has said very ably. I want to bring to your attention the fact that the IMF have loaned Zambia. Do you remember how much it is? 1.3 billion, right? 1.3 billion kwacha. Dollars, which hasn't even all of it come in. Do you know how much we are losing from the tax holidays that President Hakainde has given to foreign mining houses? More than that, double that. And if we reach the 3 million tons of copper, I am telling you, per year, I'm telling you, we can raise so much more. That as a country, at this time in our history, we don't need to depend on IMF. That we have to correct as we go on as the Tonse Alliance. I believe that even these holidays, that they have given we shall reverse it. We shall reverse those holidays. And why would you give 15%? You've mentioned acting president of PF to emerald miners. If anything, emeralds need to benefit the Zambians, but we are not seeing the benefits. Gold is bringing nothing to Zambia, so are other minerals like manganese. Even copper, we're not benefiting as a country the way we should benefit. The Tonse Alliance government, led by His Excellency, the 6th president who will become the 8th president of Zambia, is going to change this narrative. Thank you very much.
So we'll follow this order. Brother Fed and the chief of, then we can pick a lady, gentleman back there, and another lady. So let's start with you, give us your name.
Yes.
No, let's start starting with him.
Lady, my name is Best Jerry from Diamond TV. Recently, there have been some footage situations along the Chirun Road where truck drivers are getting attacked. Likely, that was filmed on a dash cam. And the worst thing is that those are young people. Even as we are in this youth month, I want you to hear what the Tonse Alliance has to say of this incident.
No, you wait.
Yeah, can I?
President Peter Chanda is going to handle it.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Acting Chair. I would like to state that as Tonse Alliance, seeing that video, I saw it yesterday on the social media, brought just one thing to my mind, that we have a collapsed system in the country. We have a government that doesn't care about the youths. We have a government that has brought poverty to a shameful level. President Hakainde should be ashamed of himself that the youths of this country have degenerated to become hardcore criminals.
Yeah.
That incident is not the only one. When you are passing through Kafue roundabout, you should be wary if you are driving, because they are just coming, opening the door. If you haven't locked your door, that is a challenge that we are living in today. So I want to state that when somebody promised heaven on earth, and yet he knew that he doesn't have a single capacity or a single iota of wisdom to turn around the economy of this country, and he lied to the Zambian people that he was a farmer and that is going to better the country in terms of food production. He lied to the country that he's an economist, that is going to better the economy of this country. He lied to the Zambian people that by 14 hours, after being sown in at 10 hours, the dollar will appreciate. So now I don't know what more lies they are going to give to the Zambian people come 2026. But the assurance that I can give the Zambian people is that Tonse Alliance is game. We have the Petauke formula now. And that Petauke formula will replicate it everywhere to to make sure that they go come 2026. The only solution for now, we cannot talk about any solution that we can give now, but it is to give hope to the youths in the country that don't turn yourself into a criminal because you lose your life. But the best thing you can do is to go and get a voter's card and make sure that come 2026, you usher in a government that cares. President Edgar Lungu and the Patriotic Front, they had one slogan. They said, more money in people's pockets. It is because of the missing link of more money in people's pocket, we have a dunderhead governor in the country. To be honest, we have a governor that doesn't understand how the country should be productive. That's why he always, each time there's a monetary policy, kufunyempia from the circulation. Now when you look at those youths, they were busy just looking. The truck driver even begged and said, "Nganindarama nza kupasani." So the youths of this country are going through pain. So that should show you that the country has degenerated into a barbaric country. And we have to correct that. So my take is simple. As Tonse Alliance, we are forming government and there will be serious reforms that will be done. And I believe the Zambian people should wait and see the manifesto that will be able to come out of the Tonse Alliance. But our goal is to make sure that this man goes and the Zambian people should be able to rejoice. We are in the Jubilee season, man. We need to rejoice at this point in time, but we are not rejoicing. Now the Bible is very clear. When the righteous rule, people rejoice. When the wicked rule, people mourn. So when you look at that scene, I'm sure the family of that truck driver, they are crying. And that's the mourning that the Bible talks about. So let's always endeavor to put in righteous people who believe in God, who fear God, who can work for God and work for the people. I thank you.
Thank you so much. The social ills that you see today are all a result of the failure by this government to provide jobs for the They've mismanaged
They've arrested the boy.
we're taking 3 questions and we're closing. We'll take your question, hers, and there's another lady. So we'll start with you, sir. Your name, the media house you represent, and your question.
So, as Tonse Alliance, in Kawamba, you feel the candidate on NCP, and then in the OK NCP, and then in Ambashi, FP. As an alliance, don't you think that you're confusing your would-be voters that today you're this alliance that you vote for, and then in this election again you have another alliance? In the sense that, because I think looking at the distance, people will share information. They say, okay, for example, I will talk about Kawamba and Ambashi because they are near their neighbors. They will share to say, okay, we voted for NCP. Even if you lost, but that's the candidate we voted. This is the candidate we are going with. And then when they go in Ambashi, you introduce another party, which is FGG. Don't you think as an alliance you are confusing your would-be voters, and that could have contributed to your loss? That's my first question. And then, what have you put in place as an alliance to ensure that you have one voice? You have maybe one political party that will be representing all these candidates. And these others will not see a situation where these others, because they're not feuding, because I know it's when you talk about Tonse, it's an alliance with different political parties. And then, don't you think we have a situation where these other political parties will say, no, we are not feuding anything? I think we'll back off from this alliance. Are we not going to see a situation where this alliance will not go forward? Because I think there are some Zambians that have hope in you. Are you not, my point is, are you not confusing your would-be voters where in this particular by-election, another political party, you go in this other one, another political party? That's what
you so much.
Okay, I'll answer that question. Listen very carefully. As Tonse Alliance, right from the beginning, we had decided that the new Congress Party is going to be our vehicle that we shall use in by-elections, and in that first Kawamba by-election, as well as in future by-elections. So I want in short to tell you that that is our position today. The other by-elections that are taking place in Kala and in Nyimba, they are going to be under the new Congress Party, and therefore future by-elections. We thank God that we already remember we have a member of parliament sitting, and a Tonse member of parliament sitting in parliament, Mr. Simon Banda Jehovah Jireh, under the new Congress Party. That MP, to emphasize, is a Tonse member of parliament, and our vehicle, the NCP, okay? The NCP, New Congress Party. Now, what happened in Pambashe? There were a Mingala to play it against us as an alliance. They actually wanted to stop us from fielding any candidate. There was a technical issue. They used that okay, that they tried to confuse, just like they did in Kawambwa, the registration papers of NCP. But that has been resolved, and we are glad that one of our members, the FDD, stepped up to make sure that as Tonse Alliance, following that confusion, we are the candidate in Pambashe. So be rest assured that we are not confusing people. Our vehicle is NCP, the New Congress Party. That's our position. Thank you very much.
Your name, the media house you present, and your president.
Sure. They have media questions.
Let's not share our weaknesses with the public. The issue of administration.
Sorry. No, not registration.
I think 2026 is very far. And seeing that it is the same, I still see to be corrected, the same 2022 census that has been used for every by-election. Does that mean that every by-election held since 2022 up to date is now void, inclusive of the Peter by-election? Seeing that we're talking about disasters, record. Secondly, people Zambians are crying about the whole high cost of living, and the government constantly blaming the previous regime, saying they created a fake economy. This is why now they have to increase in order to reduce. I'd like to get your comment for the high cost of living that the people are currently going through is being blamed by your poor leadership in previous years. I'd like to get your comments. Thank you.
You start.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. You said, sorry? Jesse Walia. What media house is it? Sorry? Breeze, okay. Indeed. The issue of ongoing contradictions and conflict in the national statistical data is a very paramount issue. Very paramount issue. Because it affects the center of our electoral system. And it undermines the credibility of any election. So to answer your question directly, yes, the credibility of previous by-elections since 2021 is compromised to a very large extent. It is compromised. There is a lot of mingalato which UPND is using the data and the voters' roll to manipulate all these by-elections in their favor. They are doing a lot of that. Even in Petauke, they used that Mingarato to manipulate. They add violence on top and add vote buying on top. So it's a concoction of formulas which they always deploy to try and influence the outcome of any election in their favor. You understand? So that is the reason why, even in Petauke, it is because of those Mingalato that the margin with which we won that seat was not to our expectation, because we expected to win Petauke by not less than 10,000 votes. Yeah. Not less than 10,000 votes, if there was no Mingalato. You understand? But their Mingalato worked to a certain extent until we were able to put a stop to some of those Mingalato. That is the reason why an earlier question which arose regarding 2026 to say if there is no change in ECZ composition by 2026, are you saying you lose the 2026 election? The answer is a definite no, like we indicated. What will only happen is that the margin with which we win 2026 might be diminished a little bit. Instead of Tonse winning 2026 by 1.5 million votes, we might win 2026 by 1.4 million votes because of Mingarato. But whatever the case, we are winning. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I think due to time.
Okay, there's a second question.
There is a second question.
Yes.
This is the last
Cost of living.
Cost of living.
time.
Blaming the former ruling party for the cost of living.
Yes, Jesse, thank you. Very important question indeed. Remember Frederick Titus Jacob Chiluba, when he was campaigning, a realist that he was, he asked Zambians, are you willing to tighten your belts when I come? And the Zambians said, yes. And after he was elected, he said, I have come to clean up the mess. And you said you tighten your belts because he was a realist and he was speaking the truth. And to follow on what President Peter Chanda said, he was a righteous man. Then came somebody else who said, I am coming. I am the angel. The one who has been anointed by God. All those who lived before me were evil. When I come, all of you shall have 3 meals a day. The day I am just elected, the whole country will celebrate because the Son of God will have come. Isn't it, therefore, extremely frustrating for you Zambians that the same person who said, vote for me and everything will be good, now he's turning around and saying, you are suffering because of the ones I removed. Huh? Now, questions are easy to ask, Jesse. And I can say, yes, I accept on behalf of Edgar Chagwalungu, on behalf of the PF, I accept one thing that we did wrong. We did not stockpile maize for 10 years. We should have reserved maize for 10 years, knowing that the guy who is coming will have an appetite to sell all our maize. Had we built silos to stock maize for 10 years, we would have still got maize which was produced by the PF government. Unfortunately, we had maize for 3 years. And these guys, within 1 year, they sold that maize. So yes, blame it on us that we didn't produce for 10 years. But at least we showed that we could produce for 3 years. And they sold it. Are you blaming us for selling the maize? And also, Zambians, can you imagine that you produce your maize and you export it and you tell the traders, export the maize duty-free. Duty-free. The law is that when you export any commodity from Zambia to another country, you must collect duty so that the Zambian economy improves. But these fellows said, you maize marketing organizations, maize marketing traders, export it duty-free. Keep the 20%. Who caused that crisis? We already spoke about tax holidays. The PF government said, every miner, you are mining our resources. If you don't want to tell us the truth about your profit, you are lying to us about your profit, but at least pay us rent in the form of mineral royalty tax. Whether you make profit or not, because you are mining our copper, give us this mineral royalty tax. Then Mr. Hagainde comes and says, even the rent, we don't want it. Keep it, it's yours. Who has created the problem? Tell me, we as PF, when we formed government in 2011, Zambia's electricity generation capacity was only 1,600 megawatts. In 10 years, we doubled it to 3,200 megawatts. With 3,200 megawatts, we should be able to export and still maintain sufficient power. What has happened? A small little crisis, you deny your Zambians power so that the people in Kalingalinga can't do their welding. The women can't run their saloons. The boys can't run their barber shops. Butcheries can't stockpile meat because the cold rooms are not working. The prices increase because the demand exceeds supply. Who has caused that? Meanwhile, you're exporting power to Namibia, and the Namibians are even clapping for you, and when there's a funeral in Namibia, you don't even go. So you're losing both ways. Huh? Now, tell me, when they were campaigning, they were saying, these guys have borrowed 14 billion. Yes, we borrowed 14 billion. But we can point at where that 14 billion went.